This is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group. Welcome everyone to another Silicon Valley market snapshot for the third week here in January of 2020. It's a very interesting time right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm reading the front page right now of the San Francisco Chronicle, and it says Bay Area median home prices fell 2.3% last year, first annual drop since 2011. Shocking. Now, if you've been watching these videos for any period of time, this is not front page news, right? We've been talking about this for pretty much the entirety of last year. But now, again, the mainstream media has finally caught up, and not to rag on them, but really, I mean, they're trying to paint the total picture, right? And they give a fairly good analysis of what's going on right now. And so I got to give props to Kathleen Pender, the author there of the article there at the Chronicle. And I am going to go over the article. I'm going to go share some key facts, some key points and whatnot, because I think it really feeds in to the consumer sentiment that's going right now in Santa Clara County, or just in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area in general, is that consumer sentiment is highly dependent on what the media is feeding us, right? And so to see that written down, I think people are feeling pretty bullish right now. Just the overall consumer sentiment that I'm feeling is that people feel very good about this year and have a very good feeling about what's going to happen for real estate and for home prices in general. Obviously good if you're a home seller, and if you're a home buyer, get off your can and do something, for Christ's sake, because I've been telling you guys for, I don't know, the last 6 months or so to get off your high horse and do something, and I know some of you just continue to procrastinate and wait and not do anything. But I can't help you if you don't want to help yourself. But for those that do want to be helped, let's go and let's talk about this article right here. Let's start off, really nice picture. I'm not sure who that lady is, but that's cool. So Bay Area median home price fell 2.3% last year. Okay, so let's go down and kind of do this. We're super high tech here, everyone. Super high tech. But again, this first highlight here that I wanted to point out, of the 9 Bay Area counties, Santa Clara had the biggest price drop, 5.6%. However, it had been the strongest the year before, rising 13.5%. So we did not see. Here's the thing, and here's what the article fails to point out, is that in 2018 we had this huge surge, right? This artificial surge, but the market did not, for the most part, in the single family sector that is, did not depreciate. And so we still captured a significant, if you're a home seller, you still captured a significant amount of equity from 2018 that was not lost in 2019. So even if you bought in 2017, you're still sitting better right now than you were when you bought the house. And that should be, obviously that should be very reflective in the comparable sales. And if you're doing your homework and are looking at what homes around you are selling for the most part, unless you're living in a weird part, and there are some areas, right, that don't fit the mold, but for the most part, we're looking at a 36-month window, and you're still appreciating, even though we had a fairly significant down market last year. It wasn't pretty. Okay, so we keep going down here, and the next part of the article that I thought was interesting was the median price in San Francisco hit a high in the second quarter of 2019, probably driven by IPO hype. As you're probably aware, several companies IPO'd last year. I believe Slack, Uber, not Uber. Was it Uber? Goodness, I can't keep track anymore. There's too many IPOs. It's gone bananas. I believe Airbnb as well, Zoom. So these are some of the companies I believe that IPO'd last year. Okay, and it wasn't just in San Francisco. The rush happened before everything went IPO. Okay, so here's a very interesting, and this is something to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, as we kind of move into this year. There was this one line that I thought was very interesting. Shoot, where'd it go? No. All right. Well, as I look here, let me find it. No. Oh goodness. Well, okay. I can't find it right now. I don't know where it went to. Okay. However, there is a portion here, there is a part in the article that talks about consumer sentiment, and it's almost like the rush happened before the events actually happened. So it was the anticipation of the influx of economic prosperity. It wasn't the economic prosperity itself. It wasn't a bunch of people being made millionaires overnight that caused the housing market to appreciate. It was the anticipation of that influx of cash into the ecosystem. And a lot of these companies had a 6-month clause in which they couldn't even liquidate their stock. So we're talking almost a year in advance before a lot of this money could even infiltrate the ecosystem. We got people spending lots and lots of money. We have homes appreciating a significant amount in anticipation of that. And that's what I want you guys to take away from today, is think about what other people are saying, because it does matter. And it matters both ways. If you're a seller and you start hearing people are talking about the market's going to do well this year, okay, if you're early enough in the action and you react quick enough, you can capitalize on it. And I'm telling you right now, at the end of February, early March, you're going to start hearing some absolutely crazy stories about real estate in a good way. We're talking about multiple offers, homes going for 50, 100, 150, 200 grand over ask price, right? Not necessarily over market value, but over list price because they're listed low. And these stories are going to drive consumer sentiment. And it's going to cause an influx of inventory in the later part of the spring market. Mark my words. And we're going to kind of be in the same position that we were in the summer this last year, where things are going to take a lot longer to sell because there's an influx of inventory. Okay, mark my words. That's number one. And number two, if you're a buyer, listen, what's done is done. But what's done is done. I'm not going to relive in the past. I'm not going to tell you about all the times that I warned everyone on the Silicon Valley Snapshot, because I'm just going to pretend like you're new to the channel, right? And this is the first Silicon Valley Snapshot that you're watching. What you're seeing right now is an anticipation of what's to come, right? So you can either buy now or buy later, right? You can either buy now or buy later. What works better for you? They actually have some predictions here as to what's going to happen to the buyers in 2020, and I thought this was interesting. Okay, so my goodness, very low tech here. For the state as a whole, Levine predicts, and Levine is a market analyst, predicts that low interest rates will continue to bolster buyer demand, but shrinking inventories will keep sales from rising more than 1% to 2% this year. We see price growth in the mid-single digit range. Whether the Bay Area does better or worse than the state is a tough call, because we have upward momentum from the demand side, but inventory shortage is even more acute in the Bay Area, which is spilling over to the demand side with people leaving the area in search of cheaper housing. And that, my friends, is the punchline. Okay? We do get caught up in this whole oh, well, we live in Silicon Valley. Demand is just going to be there. You're seeing more and more of people getting fed up and moving out of the area and just not wanting to play in the game anymore, play in the rat race. And I think as we kind of progress into 2020, pay attention to that headline, because I saw it a few times last year. I saw it in practice many times last year on the agent side of things, as in my clients left the area completely. And I just think it's going to become more and more of a headline that could feed into consumer sentiment. So the punchline for today is be careful and pay attention to what other people are saying. but don't just like react, right? Take it and consolidate it. To consolidate all of the things that you're hearing and make the decision that's make an educated decision based off of what you're hearing from out there, and then also from what's going on in here. If you're a seller, you already know where I stand. The first 2 months of this year are going to be buku crazy for you. You can't go wrong if you sell your house in the next 45 days now, okay? After that, can't predict. But I have a feeling I know what's going to happen. The inventory is going to go up, and the demand will stay consistent, okay? Until it doesn't. All right. Let's look at the heat maps here, because I think this might feed into what I think this might make some more sense here as you start to see these stats. Guys, look, Santa Clara County, we are at 502 active and 408 pending, okay? This is now the second week in a row where pending sales in the single family sector significantly trail active inventory. We're down 100 units. I mean, that's not insignificant. Condos and townhomes, you're still doing well. This is the afterburn, okay, of what was a very, very good December. But honestly, I don't know how much longer that's going to last for condo and townhome owners. However, in 2019, if you see, we had 775 active single families. And so it's almost like I don't want to show you heat maps anymore, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that have been watching, because the heat maps are going to paint a very different picture for you than the reality, which is there is more supply than demand. When there is more supply than demand, it's not like there's significantly more supply. There should at least be three or more months worth of inventory. Bottom line is this, is that when you look at the pendings versus the active inventory, we talked about this last month when we had this trend of more demand than supply. That bodes well for sellers. I'm not saying that we're in a position right now where sellers are going to be hurting, but the tides have once again turned, and there's more inventory than there are pending sales. And so if that trend continues, then we could see buyer sentiment. We could see buyer sentiment come back in this, or we could see consumer sentiment sway back in favor of buyers, saying, "Oh well, there's more homes to choose from. It's going to take a little bit longer." That being said, that's not going to play itself out for another 30, 60, 90 days. So if you're a home seller, it's even more imperative, if you're seeing this data, to make a decision sooner rather than later. Buyers, you could roll the dice, You could roll the dice, and in 3 months, you might have significantly more homes to choose from. Prices are already going to go up, and see, this is what you guys have to understand, right? You could put yourself in a more favorable conversation and more favorable situation if you wait, because you'll have more to choose from, and perhaps, not likely, less competition. Perhaps. However, on the flip side, the market's it's already appreciating. And so whatever advantage that you get from waiting could inevitably just be a wash, or even worse. I mean, you could end up paying still more than the home was worth when you initially wanted to buy, but you just feel better about it because you negotiated with the seller instead of negotiating with other buyers. You see the difference? And again, guys, I don't have a crystal ball here. I can't assuredly tell you what's going to happen. But we can look at the trends and we can see what's happened over the last 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, goodness sake, guys. Housing dropped 2%. The median house, the prices dropped 2% last year, and of course that's an amalgamation and an average of all the different houses here. But think about that, 2%. I mean, that's not that much. On $1 million home, that's $20,000, right? If you waited a whole year and you paid rent, instead of buying, and then you bought at the end of the year, you saved $20,000, did you really save 20 grand? Because you just paid like $3,000-$4,000 a month in rent, and you lost that as potential equity that you could have been putting towards your house, right? So let's not get it twisted. You still lost, right? So, and again, these are high level concepts. There might very well be exceptions to the rule where someone got a great deal and you bought at the right time, and congratulations, mazel tov, you won. Not everyone's going to be as lucky as you. So who I'm talking to are the majority of Silicon Valley home buyers right now. These stats, and this is what I was saying, is that these stats the heat maps do not really do you any favors right now, because the heat maps are all red when you look at the active listings. I mean, it's everywhere there's less inventory than there was last year, right? And everywhere there's more demand than there was last year, pending sales, right? Almost everywhere. Now there are some exceptions to the rule, like Santa Teresa, but again, these will all kind of like ebb and flow, right? That was the theme for last week. These are all going to ebb and flow, and same thing here in the Mid Peninsula and in South County. I mean, you're seeing more inventory right now, right? Which should be telling, right? Whatever happens in the high end eventually trickles down to the rest of the county. But overall, what you're seeing here is not the real story, because the real story is that there are more active homes right now than pending sales, and that's a trend that we'll continue to monitor in the single family sector. But the story that the heat maps paint is that we have less homes on the market and more pending sales. And while that's definitely the case when you measure it year over year, I mean, we have way less inventory in the single family sector, right? Especially when you couple these two numbers and compare them to these two numbers. And when you couple these two numbers, we have significantly more homes pending than we did at this time last year, right? But that doesn't tell the whole story, right? The whole story is that in the next 30 to 45 days, the housing market's going to do very well here in Santa Clara County. And that's built up momentum over the last 30, 60, 90 days plus. So these things are already set in motion. There's nothing that's going to stop this wave, right? But if these trends continue to play themselves out, then we could very well see a very different spring than we're accustomed to seeing in Silicon Valley. And that could be not so great news for home sellers. So if you're a home seller, what's the lesson here? You already know what the lesson here is. Act and act quickly. And if we're home buyers in the area, be strategic. There are still plenty of great buys out there, but time spent is time lost, and it's usually money lost too. So when you find the right opportunity, when you find something that you absolutely love, don't hesitate to make a move on it. This is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll catch all of you on the next Silicon Valley Snapshot.